All right, ladies. Today we're going to be looking at advocacy, something that I believe is very important for people of all ages, whether you are young or old. And I think that I think we have some opportunities to use the information that we learned today in our days and our lives right now. So, our past question: name three government agencies that we discussed yesterday. So, obviously, you should remember the one that you looked at. Can you name two other ones as well that we mentioned yesterday? If you can, that's awesome. If you can't, maybe go back and look at those really fast. Our present question: what does a lobbyist do? Obviously, you know what a lobby is. So, what does a lobbyist do? Do they just take care of the lobby? Well, in a way, they wait in the lobby sometimes in order to try and grab the attention of important people. So, we're going to be looking at advocacy and lobbyists and how they apply to uh, the creation of laws, but also to how to change society as a whole. Right? Of course, we should definitely take time to say our prayers. So you can pause it here and say your prayer, and then continue on. As we look at stuff today, we're going to be obviously need to look at how do we advocate for something. Not necessarily what do we need to advocate for, because you can apply to almost anything, but what are the steps that need to be taken in order to advocate? And then what's the purpose of lobbying, and how are certain ways that we can lobby, and what are limitations to lobbying as well. So we're going to look at those. Let's go ahead and start with advocacy, right? So in advocacy, if you think of it, it's very similar to the steps in the process of something like a scientific method. Okay, in scientific method, you have the problem, you have the hypothesis, you have the trying to do further research, that kind of stuff. Actually, that becomes before the hypothesis. But then eventually you set up a experiment, you run the experiment, and then you collect your data, you figure out if you need to do anything again. Okay, same thing here. You identify the issue. What is the thing that you want to focus on? If you have too many things that you focus on, then it becomes muddled and you lose focus. You need to focus on one thing, or at most just a couple of small things, and that's going to give clarity to it. Gather your information. Go out. What do you know about it, and what can we use in order to make your case stronger? Then this one, a lot of people are like, well, I want to do it now, but this actually is very useful. And even if you look at important cases right now that are being advocated for, they all have a goal in mind, right? They have a purpose. They have a statement. Okay, they might even have a plan and a timeline. Those are useful because without a plan and a timeline, then you don't know when you are trying to achieve this by. Is it just ongoing? Of course, you may have to adjust that timeline. You may have to adjust that plan based on things, but it's good to have a plan to go off of. Collect the necessary resources and the assistance. So that could be money, that could be people, that could be um, you know, signatures, whatever the case is, to go out and get those resources that you need in order to get your point across. And of course, carry out the plan. That's just the same thing as running the experiment. You're taking that plan and carrying it through. And then, of course, at the end, did you achieve the results that you wanted? If not, how can we adjust the things in front so that way we make it work? Okay, it seems so simple, right? All it is a step-by-step plan. It's not. It never is, right? Advocacy is something that you generally have to struggle with, and you don't get it right the first time, almost ever. Throughout history, people who have advocated for stuff are going to push and push and push, and some never ever get to that end result, never actually get what they want, for a variety of different reasons. Either it's not okay by society at that point, or it's not that the government is pushing back on them. Whatever the case is, it doesn't mean that you automatically get what you want just because you advocate for something. But that doesn't mean you should stop advocating. That's for sure. There are three golden rules of advocating for something. The first one is clarity. That was talking about that simple message. Pick the issue that you want to focus on. If you do a whole bunch of different things at the same time, it gets muddled and it gets confusing. And if you just focus on one thing, that allows for them to kind of join on that idea. Okay, quantity. Usually it's quality over quantity, not this time. Okay, this time it's quantity. It's you need to have a large network. You need to go out and get people to your cause and get as many people as possible. And that's going to be important for a good advocacy program. And then finally, frequency is not only do you need to have a lot of people doing it, but you need to have them go out and continue to spread it as frequently as possible. So those are kind of three words: clarity, quality, quantity, and frequency. Um, and we'll talk a little more about advocacy and what you guys can do here a little bit later as well. Now, in Washington, D.C., you take this idea of advocacy and you apply it to a certain group of individuals who want things to happen. And it could be on any certain issue, on any certain side. You're going to see opposing things on either side. And we call this lobbying. People who are going to literally wait out in the lobbies of the different places in Congress and generally even sometimes back in the day, the White House, and they would just be waiting to try and get 5 seconds with some type of congressman to convince them that this is the right way to do it. This is what we want. This is what the people need. So they're trying to influence lawmakers, government officials, and to make it one way or another. And this seems like it's kind of desperate. It seems like it shouldn't work because these lawmakers already have their minds made up. That's not always true. Sometimes if you have enough people behind them, lawmakers change their minds, or they end up voting against what they normally would because they know that's what the people want. The people voted them in. They are meant to represent them. So there's two different types of lobbying. There's direct lobbying, where there are people who are hired to then go and talk to these government officials. This is a very strict, regulated kind of thing. You have to figure out, okay, everything that you spend has to be recorded, and therefore, essentially, they're trying to cut down on bribery. They're trying to cut back on corruption and that kind of stuff. There's still definitely going to be plenty of issues out there, but a direct, especially the big companies out there, they're going to do a lot of direct lobbying, and we'll see some examples here in a little bit. The other side here is going to be much more informal, but it's still very important because it comes from the hearts of the people. And this is something called grassroots, when a small group it will become larger and become a bigger voice to try and gets the public to contact government, not just one or two lobbyists or not just a couple of different groups here, but they're going to be used in order to contact government officials or write letters or send emails or send snail mail, whatever it is. They want to get that word out there to their government officials to make that change. So some of them start as grassroots and become direct, and other ones are going to be direct from the very get-go, and some are going to be small grassroots that never really get taken off. And we have this picture here. This is kind of a way to that see this kind of controversial. So we have the Congress in the middle of lobbyists. It's like a moat, and then on the outside of the lobbyists is the voters. And so it's trying to tell us that, oh, lobbyists are kind of blocking off Congress from the actual voters, what the people care about. And sometimes that happens, and sometimes it doesn't. It just depends on what they're trying to do there. So what are some ways that lobbyists use in order to try and convince these congressmen to vote the way they want? Well, one of the big ways is campaign contributions. And there's nothing illegal about this. In fact, some people would actually say this is a fundamental right, that if you believe in the cause that this person is saying, then you should be able to contribute to them to make sure that they get elected into office. Now that seems pretty corrupt if you're from the other side saying, oh, how can these businesses be spending billions of dollars to try and get this person in office? Aren't they? Don't they feel like they owe him something? Well, maybe that could be, but usually you only support somebody that you otherwise believe will support you anyway. I'm not saying that it's okay to bribe someone. I'm not saying it's okay to try and convince them, oh, I paid you for your campaign. I got you in office. Now you owe me. That's not okay. But if you already support that idea, to get them in office is not necessarily a bad idea. Ads, okay, that seems kind of like a weird thing, but these lobbyists can buy ads to target certain people to try and get them to do something that they want, whether it's on television or whether it's through the newspaper, whatever the case is. They do use ads. Dinner meetings. Once again, this seems kind of a little bizarre to us here in Nebraska, but there are congressmen. I mean, the time spent with the congressman is never wasted. And so if you can say, hey, I'll take you out to dinner, my treat, okay, let me just into a really nice restaurant, go talk over a nice plate of sushi or wagyu beef, whatever. That people will take that up and they'll be willing to listen to these lobbyists for a meal that's nice company. And of course, the last one, the letter drives. It doesn't have to be physical letters, but any type of in like way to contact your congressman. Okay, so a lot of these seem, like I said, some people believe that some of these would be okay to use. Some people may think that that's not okay to use. That it's corruption in its purest form. That you're literally trying to buy a vote. You're trying to buy something in order to get something your way, and there is something to be said about that, as we'll see here. I want you to take a look at some of these different lobbyist organizations and see what they're able to accomplish here. So the biggest one, the one that actually spends the most amount of money, is the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Essentially, there's lobbyists who are paid to go and try and lobby congressmen to have pro-business agendas. Same thing with the Business Roundtable. They're trying to really push for pro-business. How can we get people, or how can we pass laws that are going to be beneficial towards the businesses and the business owners and the CEOs and that kind of stuff? Okay, so a lot of money goes into that to try and get people to do that. I mean, and it works because they're throwing money at it for a very obvious reason. Then, of course, there's the Blue Cross Blue Shield. You might have heard them before. They're an insurance agency, a health insurance agency. They're trying to push their agenda. There's also plenty of other ones that are doctors and health professionals. They have another one for those. You have the tech magnets right here: Google, Facebook, Amazon, that kind of stuff. They have all of them have spent millions and millions, even billions of dollars. Actually, I think it's just millions. I don't think it's billions. I could be wrong. They'll spend millions of dollars trying to convince people to push their way. And then you have other groups that aren't necessarily business oriented, but instead ideology oriented. Okay, things like the NRA, or National Rifle Association, where they're trying to promote gun rights. Okay, that's not necessarily a business thing. It's more of a my right to do something. Okay, MAD, or Mothers Against Drunk Driving, is another one where they're trying to cut back on the amount of drunk drivers out there to save lives. And then, of course, the AARP, I know has something to do with the American Association of Retired People. So essentially, it's the elderly. You have to be a certain age, even though for some reason I keep on getting letters from the AARP. I don't know why, but I'm definitely not ready for retirement. But it's another organization that's trying to support the rights of the elderly, to make sure that they are getting their voice heard. And it has been successful in the past. So all these different groups and so many more are spending millions and even up to billions of dollars every year to try and get their way in Congress. So what we're going to finish up with today is I would like you to read a little article. I'm going to put this up on Canvas as well. It's from Forbes, and there is a journalist who used to be a president of a university, and he says that right now there is great reason to believe that there is going to be a lot of student activism this fall for a variety of different reasons. So once you read the article, I just want you to think about this one question. If you were on college campus right now, would you join this thing for any of these 5 reasons or 4 reasons, whatever, how many reasons they had? Is there a reason that you would join the student activism? And I will kind of talk about this when we come back together on Monday. So make sure that you also have your occupation interview done on Monday, and we'll get ready and I'll get that study got up so you can have that ready for your test on Wednesday this next week. Have a great night, and we'll talk to you later.